Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Upgrades. I'm Jeremy Knoll,
And I'm John Suarez.
and in this episode, we're going to talk about the Witherbloom Witchcraft deck from Commander 2021, which is headed up by Willowdusk Essenseer as the commander. So Justin got to play this one, and I think it's pretty sweet. It's right up his alley, and there's a lot of really cool things in the deck. I'm particularly excited about the other commander in the deck too. The one that makes food tokens.
Yeah, that card's obnoxious.
Guillaume Master Chef. That card was really neat. So a lot of cool things with this deck out of the box. But we're going to talk about a couple of cards that you could put in to make it just a little bit better. And to kick us off, there's one that both of us have, which is Whip of Erebos. It's pretty. It's seen some play. I think it's a little bit less common now than when it first came out, but still a pretty great card. 2 black. Creatures in control have lifelink. Really care about that in this deck. And 2 black. Tap it. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. If it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead. And you can only activate it as a sorcery, so you can't do it on other players' turns. But there's some cool cards, cool creatures that you're going to want to bring back on occasion. And then just being able to give all of your creatures lifelink is great in this deck.
Yep, this deck wants to gain life. That's what it wants to do. It doesn't mind losing it, but it also really just wants to gain it.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. So my first card is going to be a sweet creature to add to the deck, and that is Disciple of Bolas. So 3 colors and a black. When it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice another creature. You gain X life and draw X cards, where X is that creature's power. And it's a 2/1. So this deck has a ton of creatures that get really big, whether that's because you've gained a bunch of life and they've got a bunch of +1/+1 counters, or they're just generically big because, that's how they come, or Willowdusk has made them monstrous. But this will allow you to really get some advantage out of your Disciple of Bolas.
Yeah, I really like Disciple of Bolas, and in this deck, it's very good. It's above what it would be in another deck most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that one's great. Another creature that I really like in this deck is Underrealm Lich. There's obviously the combination of, if you happen to have a Sylvan Library, it makes it way better, but on its own, it's really great. If you would draw a card, instead look at the top 3 of your library, then put 1 into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. It's a 4/3 for 5. The other big thing it has is pay 4 life. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. And that's just, you can just pay 4 life. So if you really need to be able to pay that extra life to activate Willowdusk and put a bunch of counters on something, you can just pay life into it multiple times, tap Willowdusk, and add a whole bunch of counters onto something.
Yep. You just pay, however much life as you want, is in four life increments.
Yep.
You just pay 4 over and over and over.
Yep.
Get somebody.
Yeah.
And you'll have that life to spend because one of the other cards I'm adding is another black staple, and that's Grey Merchant of Asphodel. 5 mana, 2/4. When it comes into play, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black, and then you gain life equal to the life lost that way. So this card normally nets you, somewhere in the area of like 15 plus life normally. That is a very big activation from Willowdusk.
Yeah, for sure. Another one that is going to also kind of keep your life total up is actually one of my favorite mono black cards, and that's Exsanguinate. Each opponent loses X life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. It's pretty much the same, except it's just black X, and it's not on a body. It doesn't care about your devotion, just cares about how much mana you put into it. So very similar, but obviously Grey Merchant's kind of taken over that spot because it's usually a much better rate, especially if you're playing mono black. But I still like the classic, just drain you all. Let's go.
Yeah. Exsanguinate's nice. You need to make sure you have the mana to go for it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, and I also have another X spell as my next card, and that is Erebos' Intervention. This is X and a black instant. You target creature gets -X until end of turn, and you gain X life, or exile up to twice X target cards from a graveyard, and you get to choose one of those abilities. So you always want some graveyard removal, right? Like you always want something there, so this kind of plays that role, but at the same time, it's a removal spell that can gain you a ton of life for a Willowdusk activation. So I really like this card in this deck.
Yeah, it's great as an instant speed as well.
Mm-hmm.
because if somebody's trying to recur something, you just, oh, there you go. Sorry,
Yep.
it's gone. You know, it does.
Yeah.
It's not not like Majuka Bog where it has to target one person on your turn. You can really just strategically take the things out that people are trying to recur.
Yeah.
So
Any
very
graveyards,
mhm,
twice X cards. Pretty nice.
twice X cards. So very great. Another one that I like that is going to be good at just the incremental stuff, incremental life gain is Bastion of Remembrance. And this is one that I have put in a couple of my black commander decks, and I really like it. It's an enchantment for 2 and a black. When it enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 human soldier token, and whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So it's not the gaining like Grey Merchant and like Exsanguinate, where you gain equal to the life lost this way. It's the more fixed version for multiplayer that they put on a lot of those more recently, where you only gain like the 1 life or however much it is. But still, it's if you're going to be having a lot of creatures that are going to end up getting sacrificed or dying, it's usually really good. If somebody board wipes, they're going to pay for it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoy that card quite a bit.
All right, so my next card is Momentous Fall. This is a 2 colorless, 2 green instant. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you do have to sacrifice a creature. And you draw cards equal to the creature's power, and then you gain life equal to the creature's toughness. So just another one of those kind of, this is a little bit of a sacrificey deck, I think, personally. Or I think you want to add those cards to it anyways, and you'll get that advantage. So, gaining life, being able to sack, even if it's Willowdusk, you gain 3 life minimum from that, just getting rid of it. It's an instant, so you can play it in response to a removal spell, which is nice. I just like this card in this deck. I think it works really well.
Yeah, it's definitely one to keep in your collection for decks like this. I think it's a very good card. Another one that we both agreed on was Unspeakable Symbol, going back to Underrealm Lich and just being able to pay life whenever. Unspeakable Symbol is one that you'll often see in that style of deck, where it's a colorless black enchantment, or generic black rather. Pay 3 life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and that might seem like it's not a super great rate. Paying 3 life, just for 1 +1/+1 counter seems a little steep to some people, but it's really about, all right, I'm going to be draining myself so that I can, pay 1 into Willowdusk and put a bunch of counters on something already, or I'm gonna utilize that for that extra +1/+1 counter somewhere, and you're already going to be gaining a bunch of life with this deck, so like it's semi irrelevant that you're going to be paying 9 extra life to be able to put the 3 counters you're getting with Unspeakable Symbol plus the 9 from Willowdusk.
12 +1/+1 counters for 9 life is pretty good.
Works well.
My next card is a creature, which I know you're a big fan of, and that's Jarad, Golgari Lich Lord. 4 mana, black, green. Jarad gets +1/+1 for each creature in your graveyard, and you can pay 3, 1 black, green, sacrifice another creature, and then each opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's power. And then you also can sacrifice a swamp and a forest to return Jarad from your graveyard to your hand. So nice little recursion. These are the type of creatures. This is a really good ability to have with something like Willowdusk. So when you do make a giant creature full of +1/+1 counters, then you can use Jarad to fling that creature at everybody.
Yeah.
I think this is a really sweet addition to the deck.
Yeah, it's super cool. Just being having that extra couple of mana open, paying the bunch of life with something like Unspeakable Symbol, using Willowdusk, and then flinging that creature to make everybody lose, that 12 or whatever right away is just super cool and very synergistic with this deck. So the next couple of ones that I'm going to talk about are ones that I already talked about for our Quantum Quandrix deck, and they are trying to get more out of the +1/+1 counter side of things, and that's Hardened Scales, which is an enchantment for 1 green. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, that many +1 are put on it instead. So works really well if with just how many +1/+1 counters you've got going around between Willowdusk and Unspeakable Symbol and just the other stuff that's going on in the deck already. And the other one is Loyal Guardian, which is from a Commander precon, and that is 4 and a green for a 4/4 Trampler, and it has Lieutenant. So if you control your commander at the beginning of combat on your turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. very solid in a deck like this that really wants to get those +1/+1 counters, and just adds even more to it. So
very cool card. So my next card is a new one from Strixhaven, and that is Blex, Vexing Pest.
I love this one.
So this is a 2 colors and a green legendary creature pest. It's a 3/2. Other pest, bats, insects, snakes, and spiders you control get +1/+1, and when Blex dies, you gain 4 life. Cool card. That's not the side I'm really interested in. The side I'm really interested in.
I was going to say, you probably want the Search for Blex.
Is Search for Blex. This is one of the modal dual face cards. It is 2 colors, 2 black, sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library, put any number of them into your hand and the rest in your graveyard, and you lose 3 life for each card you put into your hand this way. So this card could say for 5 mana, draw 5 cards, lose 15 life, put 15 +1/+1 counters on a creature.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I really like Blex on the front side. I just think it's a funny card.
It is.
But yeah, the backside's super great, and it just has that wonderful flavor of, where's Blex? Searching for, oh, look, he was right there the whole time. You know, I'm sure the people who were designing the set just had a ton of fun with that over and over and over again. My next one is one that's going to make some creatures, and it's going to care about how much, or it's going to care about you, or it's going to ask you to lose life, which is something that Willowdusk cares about, and that's Phyrexian Processor. So it's a bit of an older card. It hasn't been printed in a while. It was reprinted in like Phyrexia versus the Coalition.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been printed in a while, but there are a couple of printings of it, and it's artifact for 4 mana. When it enters the battlefield, pay any amount of life, and then for 4, you can tap it and put an XX black minion creature token onto the battlefield, where X is the life paid by Phyrexian Processor as it entered the battlefield. So you do get that, like, just pick a number. Since you're gaining a bunch of life, you can just like with Unspeakable Symbol and Underrealm Lich, pay X amount, and then you can get really big creatures, and you get to activate Willowdusk the turn that it comes in. So.
Yeah, sweet. It was a very, very powerful card that's standard life.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons I love it. So,
all right, my last card is a very innocuous little tree. Nothing special going on. It is a Tree of Redemption. This is a 3 colorless and a green for a 0/13 wall as defender. Right? It's not a wall, I guess. It's a plant.
Yeah.
But then you can tap and exchange your life total with Tree of Redemption's toughness. So a lot of the times you're playing is, if you're below 13, this will always make sure you go back to something like that, hopefully, right? Close to 13. Yeah. But in Willowdusk's decks, you can activate this when you're at a higher life total. And exchanging life is still losing it. So, if you're at 30 and you activate Tree of Redemption, that's 17 counters that you can get from a Willowdusk activation for a turn.
Yeah.
So pretty sweet little card that just sits there and looks, holds the ground, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, all right, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The losing lottery ticket, Masters 25 Tree of Redemption.
Yeah.
Very, very much relevant in certain decks.
For sure.
But, I have 2 more cards. One is an equipment, and that's Basilisk Collar, which is going to be fantastic in attached to any creature that is one of your big creatures that you put a bunch of counters on. It's a 1 mana for equip for 2. Equipped creature has Death Touch and Lifelink. So you just gain a bunch more mana. You can utilize for Willowdusk again, and it also has the advantage of being able to just kill whatever blocker, or if they have some big attacker you need to get rid of. And then the last one is an enchantment, creature enchantment, and that's Instill Energy. This one has been utilized a bunch by like CEDH combo decks, and has definitely had a little bit of presence in other kinds of decks, but like Selvala is definitely a huge one for it. But it's an enchant creature. It's an aura for 1 green. It gives the creature haste, and it says for 0 you can untap it, and you can only use it during your turn and only once each turn. So it
I
allows
don't
you
think it gives it haste. I think it gives the creature can attack as though it had haste. So it's a little weird, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
you were
so you
right.
can't activate the ability. You can't activate an ability. You can attack.
Yes.
It's one of those. I mean, it's from Alpha, right? So like,
It's from
weird.
Alpha. I was looking at an older. Yeah, I was reading the card and not the Oracle text. I apologize. Yeah. Enchanted creature can attack as though it had haste, so it can't actually activate the ability. But being able to get double abilities is really what we're here for.
Yeah.
So being able to, for 0 mana, being able to untap Willowdusk so that you can utilize that again, because it doesn't care that you've already activated it once per turn. It just says activate it only as a sorcery, and it says put a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the amount of life you gained this turn or the amount of life you lost this turn, whichever is greater. So it doesn't care if you've already done it once. You can untap it, do it a second time, get double your counters. So
yeah, very cool.
Very cool. So that's all the ones that we would add to the deck. There are a few that we would suggest taking out. And again, just like we said on other ones, this is all personal preference. So there are definitely ones that you might look at and go, why would you not suggest this one to be taken out? It's such a bad card. So complete personal preference. But the first one for me is going to be Ageless Entity. It's not quite what I would want to do in this deck. Like, it's going to get really big, for sure. It's a 4/4 for 5. Whenever you gain life, put that many +1/+1 counters at. Willowdusk is going to give it even more counters. So it's going to be gigantic creature, but it is just a gigantic creature.
Yeah.
And we talked about with the Quandrix deck. Yeah, it's cool that Desolation Twin's in there, but it's just one really big creature.
Yeah.
So.
And you'll see the theme with the cards I'm cutting from the deck, and that's the first one is Epicure of Blood. It's a 5-mana 4/4 vampire. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses a life. I'm looking for. I don't want the little incremental stuff. I want people to feel Willowdusk. I don't want this one here, one there. I want a lot of counters all at once.
That's fair. Yeah.
It's kind of
my next one is in a kind of similar vein. It is slightly more than one, but it's Gift of Paradise. It's an enchantment that it ramps you, but it gains you 3 life when it enters. So it's one of the enchant lands that have come over the last few years, and it just comes in, gains you 3 life, and it taps to the land taps to add 2 mana of any one color. So it's okay. 3 life, not quite what I want for that. So probably not the best to me anyway.
Yep. Next card I cut was Paradise Plume. 4 mana. When it comes into play, you choose a color, and then whenever a player casts a spell of the chosen color, you gain a life, and it can tap to add a mana. You're not really looking for 4 mana rocks in this deck, and you're going to gain some life off the card. It's good in that regard, but again, I'm trying to gain a lot of life when I'm trying to gain it, or lose a lot of life all at once. Yeah. So the incremental is not really what I'm looking for. I think I could do better.
Yeah, that's fair. And my last one is Venser's Journal. I don't know what to say about this one other than meh. 5 mana, you have no maximum hand size, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 1 life for each card in your hand. It rewards you for not playing cards.
Yeah.
So, and that's not quite you want to be. You're not playing like a draw go style deck. You're not playing I want to draw a whole bunch of cards at once, then just sit there and see what other people do in reactionary. Which is what this card kind of wants more than anything. Mm-hmm. So it's just okay, and like you said, it's more incremental than anything. You're going to be gaining 3 and 4 maybe, but
yeah, it's definitely not. This deck doesn't seem like that's where it wants to be. That's a blue-white control-ish card. So
yeah. So
my last card is a good card, but probably not one that I would try and waste a spot on, and that is Sun Droplet. It's 2 mana artifact. Whenever you dealt damage, you put that many charge counters on Sun Droplet, and then at the beginning of each player's upkeep, you may remove a counter from Sun Droplet, and if you do, you gain a life. So, over the course of a turn cycle, you can gain 4 life off this card, which is not horrible. But again, spots there's only 99 spots in your deck, right?
Yeah.
So we got to make the use of all of them, and Sun Droplet just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, and one that that I know that I've talked about cutting from decks in the past that's in this deck is Well of Lost Dreams, and that one is kind of on the line in this deck for me. I actually think that this one would be better in this deck than I've seen it in other decks.
I agree.
Where you gain life, you can pay X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life you gain. If you do, draw X cards. So you're going to be gaining like a lot of life at a turn for a lot of times. But even if you just pay like 2 into Well of Lost Dreams, getting to draw 2 cards is just great. So
yeah. Well, Lost Dreams goes really well with the incremental life gain, like the Sun Droplets and the Paradise Plumes. You just draw, treat it like a mind's eye kind of.
Yeah.
But it's still, I think it's good in this deck.
Yeah, so even if if you gain 7 life in one turn, you have like 3 mana left over, might as well just draw 3 cards off it.
Yeah.
So and then another one that I know you pointed out that we both said was very interesting is Witch's Clinic.
Yeah, it's a sweet card.
Which is a very cool card. Definitely want to see how that one plays out. Target commander gains lifelink until end of turn.
Don't cut that one.
Don't cut that one. That one's cool. I want to see how that one works out. I'm very excited for that one. So. Okay, so that is our upgrades episode of the Witherbloom Witchcraft deck. And as always, make sure to let us know what cards you would add in the comments below. And also make sure to like, share, and subscribe. For John Suarez, I am Jeremy Knoll, and thank you for watching.